Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bobby and Beardy Show. There are time codes below should you wish to use them. We're on Spotify, maybe check us out there and leave a like on the video and subscribe for future releases. I'm Bobby, he's McBeardy, and today we're going to be doing something slightly different. Instead of looking at the most recent cinema or streaming release, we're going to be discussing 1999's The Mummy, as it was back in theatres for its 25th anniversary. Don't worry, we're going to do more or less the same sort of thing as normal, which is a bit of non-spoilers, and then with more spoilers.
Many more spoilers, yeah.
It's a 25-year-old film, and quite a few of them.
You've had your time to watch it.
Exactly. You should still watch it, though, if you haven't. I really do recommend
Definitely.
it. It's a fun film.
Yeah.
Most of my notes I have today are kind of in background stuff that it's just easy to discuss in non-spoilers, but we'll give you the brief thing. Anyway, we're going to crack straight on today into the rundown. Here's all you need to know. The Mummy is a 1999 American action-adventure film written and directed by Stephen Sommers. Stephen Sommers, by the way, directed Van Helsing, which is a sort of similar sort of period piece monster thing, and is actually a guilty pleasure of mine. Maybe we'll review it in the future.
We definitely should.
The film stars Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John, Hannah and Arnold Vosloo. It is a remake of the 1932 film of the same name, making this the remake of so this is the second remake, and then there's a remake for this, which is the Tom Cruise version, which is also a reboot.
Yeah.
Everything's a remake, but also mostly a reboot at the same time. The Tom Cruise version is fine at best. This reboot is good.
Outstanding.
The film follows adventurer Rick O'Connell, Fraser, as he travels to Humanatra, the city of the dead, with librarian Evelyn Carahan, Weisz, and her older brother Jonathan, Hannah, where they accidentally awaken Imhotep, Vosloo, a cursed high priest with supernatural powers. I don't know about you, Beardy, but I call that a Wednesday. I'm forever accidentally bringing back cursed priests with supernatural powers. Happens all the bloomin' time. Like I said, this was released on in 1999, the 7th of May. That's how we used to do dates back then. You used to say the da-da-da-da-da bit. It's a runtime of 125 minutes, which is longer than I thought it was going to be. And bang goes my theory that everything used to be a nice, tight 90 minutes back in the day. Apparently I made that up in my head. The budget was 80 million, which adjusted for inflation is 151 million. At the time of this release, the Universal, who distributed, really needed a box office success after multiple box office failures, Babe, Pig in the City being one of them. This led the studio to revisit its old successful franchises from the 1930s to what worked then, 70 years ago. What a strategy.
Yeah.
Anyway, the box office at the time, 417 million, again adjusted. That is 786 million. A lot of movies these days would kill for that box office.
Yeah.
Especially this year in 2024. Good grief. It's safe to say that Universal found their box office success they were looking for, as The Mummy would go on to have 2 direct sequels, a spin-off film, The Scorpion King, which in turn would have its own sequels, although those were most, if not all, direct to VHS, DVD, or streaming, or a combination of.
We don't talk about them.
All of them. Just an interesting thing before we go into it. Originally, this was released in the UK as a 12 certificate, which doesn't exist anymore. This is because the theatrical version had 14 seconds cut to avoid that 15 rating, which would have damaged that box office by cutting off 3 years worth of people who can see the film. Removing shots of dangling and suffocating on a noose during a hanging sequence, and as a result, some of the lines between Rachel Weisz and Ahmed Dejali were also removed because they're like happening at the same sort of time. Interestingly, the UK 12 rated VHS Beardy also had cuts, but were edited differently for some reason, but also restores a shot of the trapdoor opening and somebody dropping through. Now, the UK DVD release is rated at 15 and restores all cut footage from the cinema version. The version I watched in the cinema, because I watched it back in the cinema, you watched it at home, is now classed as 12A, But as far as I can tell, it is the UK DVD 15 version from when it came out.
Okay.
So it's all changed.
There was a family-friendly specific version made as well for DVD, which had a whole separate blue border to it, so you knew you were getting the family-friendly, which cut out a lot of the more stressful scenes. So basically, they did many different versions of this just because they're like, ha, everyone wants to see it, we'll just make it fine for everyone. You know what? A good message.
It's what they used to
see
do.
The film. It's good.
A lot. Yeah, it's like, yeah, come see. I don't know if they did they do that in cinema, or was that more of a DVD home release thing where they were like,
that was a DVD thing.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, get as many people buying your product as possible. Just some fun facts I read while I was doing some road search stuff.
Another fun fact: there was another version for airlines specifically. Where have you seen this?
I think I know what you're going to say, and I've got some thoughts on it, so crack on.
There's two parts of it. Anux in the Moon, they kind of airbrush a bikini onto her because they're like, well, too much nudity is not okay. And Winston's plane crash is just cut out of it because you don't want to remind people of potential crashes when you're on a plane.
Yeah, I've made a note about that, about it being cut out for airlines, because if there's anything that would freak me out on a plane on a long-haul flight between London and New York, it's a World War I fighter plane going down because a mortal high priest with magical powers created a sandstorm. When I'll be sitting there, oh, well, this could clearly happen to me on my plane now.
That's my biggest worry. Yeah, no, to be fair, I think about it all the time. Like,
while we're talking about CGIing bikinis and things on, Rachel Weisz had to have her white dress, she falls into a river at one point, and it became too see-through. So they had to block out the bits that you weren't meant to see for the PG version, or at all. I don't think they thought that far ahead. Anyway, let's get into the actual review. We're kind of already there. Beardy, what do you think of The Mummy 25 years on?
To be fair, one thing I will say, and it's a section of films I want to discuss with you. I think that obviously the CGI and the effects, and even like the actual effects, you can tell they're from 25 years ago, but they age well. I actually think they have held up so outstandingly. I was discussing this with someone recently. We were discussing Jurassic Park, which the effects hold up on that. And why can't we do that with films now? Like 25 years later, some effects are garbage. This holds up outstandingly. Don't get me wrong. Some of the sand animations weren't brilliant, but the way they kind of put his face in the sandstorm, pretty good. The part where you even just the shadow shot of that guy being sort of drained of his juices.
Nobody's drained of any juices, I swear.
But yeah, these were really well shot, and it holds up. I was so surprised by how well it held up. Like, I remember the film and remember enjoying it, but yeah, it did a really good job.
Yeah, I agree. I think the CGI is pretty good. It does stand up 25 years later. I think there's one scene which I'll talk about in spoilers, where I'm a bit like, it's not quite as it's noticeably not as good. But yeah, you've got films that come out around this time and after that. If we went back to them now, we're like, wow, this is dodgy. This one, pretty good.
Like last year, The Flash, the CGI in The Flash wasn't outstanding, and that was a 2023 film.
Yeah.
Why? And I assume it probably had a bigger budget, like, as well, because it's a DC.
I think it had a massive budget, actually.
Yeah. So that's a concern.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really fun action adventure that's both of its time it's a 90s film, even though it's just about to cross over into the millennium, but it also stands the test of time and holds up completely.
Yes.
And it's just a fun film to watch. I really enjoyed watching it back in the cinema. There's one film which we talked about last week before we just knew we were going to do this precisely, but there's one film that's lived in my head rent-free for years since I watched the movie for the first time, and it freaked me out big time. I'll talk more about that in a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really think this film holds up. Brendan Fraser, he's excellent. He's got he's a charismatic, confident, swashbuckling lead. And I'm really glad they got him. They considered other people. I do have a list, but I'm not going to go through it.
So do I. We did the same research, basically.
But no, I think he's really good. I think Jonathan the brother is a fun character. He's kind of the main. Well, he is the main comedic relief. He doesn't go overboard. He does his jokes don't overstay their welcome. He's kind of just here and there. I don't think I remember that being the case for the sequels. I think he gets more annoying.
Yes.
But that's happens quite a lot with comedic relief characters. In fairness, Benny is another kind of comic relief character, sniveling coward who kind of betrays a lot of people along the way. But O'Connell doesn't really hold a grudge against him, but kind of does. It's kind of like a fun grudge. It's not like there's no like, even though he was getting killed several times, he's not really that mad at him, which is quite fun. One thing I will say though is there is some noticeable ADR throughout this film, and I feel like this used to be more common. Back in the 80s, 90s, it certainly feels that way to me. But I'm the guy who thought every film was 90 minutes, so maybe I'm wrong. I think when we see it now, like in Madam Web earlier in the year, we all freak out and go, wow, that was really poor. Can you imagine they made a film that they had to ADR everything? But back then, it was more of like, yeah, whatever, ADR. So,
I think it was less noticeable. I think recording tactics were less precise, so everything was a little bit softer and it didn't come across as obvious. Whereas now, things are so precise. If you miss it slightly, it's the same way you watch a film from 1999 on a TV in 1999. You're thinking, you know what, this is outstanding. Then you watch that same film on a TV now, you're like, this is terrible. You just get used to what you're used to and what the way that technology changes, and because of that, you see it on a 2023, 2024 film. You're like, oh, this is not okay. Burn them all. Whereas 1990s, you know what? Yeah, fine, it's okay, and yeah, somehow it's less oppressive.
Well, it certainly wasn't as bad as Madam Web, where you would literally watching the guy's mouth move, but the words you were hearing were different. The ADR I noticed in this one is, someone's got their head to a turn to the camera and then they're saying something, and just as they stop saying it, they've turned around, so it's just missed it, and maybe they didn't get the line on the day, or they've changed it to pace it up. But I'm like, that's a moment. The only reason I'm bringing it up is to talk about how bad Madam Web is, if I'm honest with you. Not because I found really I didn't find it a complaint in this film. I just went, well, there we go. I have one more thing I'd like to say before we kind of go into spoilers and just talk freely. So if you have anything you want to chuck in now, go for it.
No, I guess the main things I want to talk about is how well they put so much thought into this. Like you say, it is a remake, which was nice. Like Universal have a lot of ownership of like monster movie IP, but they put a lot of thought into the characters and the names. I haven't seen the 1932 film. I may actually now because I kind of want to. But even Evelyn's character, they named her for an Egyptologist and her father, which is a nice little feature. Like, they didn't have to do it, but for the people who actually are into that sort of thing and watch this film, they're probably going to be like, yeah, that's cool. I like that. And then be like, Mummy's come alive too. Totally realistic.
Happens every Wednesday, like I say.
Every Wednesday.
God, stop it. Oh, not again, we say. Yeah.
Sorry, your thing.
My thing is really, Imhotep's not really a mummy in this. It's called the Mummy. He's not really a mummy because he's not the slow, staggering corpse wrapped in bandages, which Stephen Sommers intentionally didn't want to do as part of. He considered that, an older kind of joke that wasn't particularly scary anymore. He wanted something faster, meaner, etc., which is great. But I do now think the film is incorrectly named. I personally believe it should have been called Evil Priest who is mummified alive for a bit, then comes back, and then becomes a man with magic powers, which I grant you does not roll off the tongue quite as well.
No, honestly, the easiest thing they should do is just air quote the mummy part, just the mummy.
The mummy brackets for a bit anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so they've taken the old IP. They've got the idea from what they've done before, and they've revamped it, and they've given it a complete new look, action, adventure, romance, and all that good stuff. And then, but they have moved quite far away from the mummy itself, even though obviously there is mummification involved for other characters as well. But really, the trope of the mummy isn't in this film, which is absolutely fine. I just found it interesting.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, yeah, even every sort of mummy character you do see, they are faster. Like, they're moving with more purpose. They attack, like, some of them are using weapons. Not a spoiler, it's 25 years old. Just come on.
I think it's in
on the box art. Yeah.
You're right. All of them, all of the lesser mummies who kind of get brought in to do some skirmishing, they're all, none of them are the classic wrapped in bandages kind of thing. They're all, got a sword, I'm going to chop your head off, mate. Which is cool. I liked it. I think it's a very good reinvention of the genre, and it's fun. It is a fun film. I'm ready to go straight into spoilers because I just want to talk nonsense.
Same.
Obviously, it's getting a 25-year-old thumbs up from me.
Yeah, same.
Thumbs up from Beardy. Can I start the spoiler section if you wouldn't mind?
You can. Yes,
Thank you
can.
so much. I think this film could have been solved several times. I'm introducing a new segment. It's called "You Should Have Just Killed Him, Mate." That's right, it's the famous cousin segment of the You're a Bit of a Knob, where I tell you several moments in a film where somebody or some people should have just killed them, mate. And you'd have got no problems at all at the start of the film. I know you're right. You want to get your big revenge on the evil priest who killed the pharaoh and was hooking up with the mistress and smudging her makeup. But maybe just cave his head in with a brick instead of giving him a curse that will make him come back as an all-powerful immortal should he escape. Why give him that chance? You know? I know you've got the guys watching casually from a cliff top, but they're a bit useless. Maybe they should have just killed Rick O'Connell when he's in the French Legion at the start and he's walking off into the desert and they're like, yeah, the desert will finish him off. No, maybe cave his head in with a brick and then he can't come back and cause problems. Honestly, the descendants of the royal bodyguards are useless. When they come back, everybody comes back. You've got the two groups trying to find everything and do some digging. The royal guards burst in to the campsite at night, kill a few extras, and then they just leave. They're like, all right, Rick O'Connell, I see you've got some dynamite in your hand, which will kill you just as much as it would kill me. I'm going to give you 1 day to leave. Spoiler, they don't flipping leave. They go and release Imhotep. Just cave everybody's head in with a brick. You've already burst in and killed some people and had some of your men die. Just finish the job. And then you wouldn't have an end of the world situation. And that's my famous segment. Should have just killed him, mate.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
The first one is, are you okay? Like, do you just want to cave someone's head in with a brick? That's what I'm getting from this.
I just think when you're watching a film, you watch it and go, well, that's a mistake. You should just get this guy right now. Personally.
No, I completely agree. I understand the whole punish the guy for touching your concubine and killing you sort of thing. Get that completely. I feel like there's a fine line between this torture is absolutely terrible and the one that's a little bit worse has some horrendous potential consequences. Maybe stop just short.
Yeah.
Just that little bit short.
Why risk it?
Maybe not as brutal as cave the head in with a brick, but like
I don't know.
That's not enough torture.
What would you rather be? Would you rather be eaten slowly alive by flesh-eating scarabs or have your head caved in with a brick quite quickly?
Yeah, but I don't think they gave him the choice. The whole point is he had to suffer.
Oh, you didn't think he had a tick box to choose on how?
Yeah, it's not the ancient cake or death. Like,
oh no, he should have chosen cake. What an idiot!
He should have chosen cake. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Like, obviously, the stories wouldn't be the way they are if that was the case. But yes, you are right. There's a lot of easy fixes to this.
I'm just saying, if I was there,
but
it would have been easy. The story wouldn't have been fun, but I'd have solved all the problems. All I'm saying.
What we're hearing is, if you're around Bobby, hide your bricks.
I do in the royal bodyguards, though. They are absolutely incompetent.
The Magi.
They all die badly, like just easily, apart from the main one. Even the Dr. Terrence Bay, who's Evelyn's boss at the library, he's revealed to be a member of them. He's also useless. Come on, guys. You're meant to be protecting the tomb here, and you're doing it quite frankly bad. Where's your performance review? Who's in charge of that? You're bad at your job.
No, you can't go wrong with that. Can't argue.
I do think...
I do think
Go for it.
Sorry, you first. You first.
No, I insist.
I was just going to say, like, I can't really stress how much I love these films, specifically this one. And to be fair, as much as I know it's not as good, The Returns is still nice. I like this genre of sort of older English archaeologist unleashes something. It scratches an itch. Like when I was younger, I used to read books along the same lines. There's a game called Curse the Eye of Isis that does the exact same thing. I love this genre, and not enough films do it. And I'm honestly torn on the idea of if they should do it or if it'll just ruin all the good work that this one film does. Because it's funny, it's got the romance, it's got a little bit of scare, to the extent that where my other half wouldn't see it. She's 27. It does a lot for the genre, and I want to see more of it, but I'm also concerned that it'll ruin it.
There are a lot of films of this type that do get kind of made. Not of the old archaeologists bringing something back, but the kind of the fun action, adventure, romancy things that get made just not as good these days. It does feel like it worked for a time, and now doesn't. I mean, I think the closest thing to it, I really think that works was maybe Guardians of the Galaxy. It's kind of got a similar actiony vibe, but it's not really the same at the same time.
Yeah, no.
I mean, the Tom Cruise remake's just useless, but
yeah, I really didn't like that at all. The less we say about that, the better.
Speaking of not wanting to watch this film, though, the scene that scarred me for life up until now, when I'm completely unscarred, it gets eaten alive by those flesh-eating scarabs who burrow in through his shoe, climb up through his body, and you can see it going around his body and then slowly up into his brain. This is the bit which I was talking about where the CGI is probably at its ropiest, as you could it looks very that era video game kind of going across him. It's like, oh, okay. But also in my head, seeing this years ago, I'd overhyped this so much from when I'd seen it as a kid. I had more scarab beetles eating him alive. It was far more gruesome and like painful. And I watched it now and I was like, oh, is that it? Oh, that's lived in my brain for 20 years. Oh.
I think in the sequel, they do have more and it's a bit more gruesome. That's what I honestly believe it is. Because I remember thinking, like, when my other half, and you mentioned, like, I'm pretty certain it's not that bad in this one. Like, you really only see them a couple of times and usually it's covered in a way that you can't see the specifics. Like, there's a point where there's a whole swarm of them and some guy trips and then he's liquefied, basically.
Yeah, the swarms aren't scary at all. They're just like, what?
No. Yeah, that's the thing. You only have that one scene with Omid Jalali where it's in under his skin, and even then it's just badly done. Probably fine for the 1999, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this film and Indiana Jones: The Temple of Doom are the two biggest reasons I don't like spiders and bugs and things. Because there's a scene in the Temple of Doom with all the bugs, and that's just gross. And then there's this. Yeah. So I blame these movies for why I'm an absolute wuss when it comes to creepy crawlies.
Specifically, you're going to write letters to Brendan Fraser and Harrison Ford and say, you did this.
They owe me money, I reckon, actually.
They owe you money. Yeah, remuneration.
I reckon so.
I think so too. Okay, cool. I was going to say, like, I like the fact, obviously, we talked about the CGI, but they did a lot of their own real effects in this. And Brendan Fraser actually kind of got hung for the hanging scene, and there was a point where, like, I can't remember if he technically died. Well, I know he stopped breathing, which is, you know what, a lot of people wouldn't do that today. That's a level of commitment that you just don't see.
When we say they don't make films like they used to, sometimes that's a good thing, because yeah, it doesn't sound like a fun time. That would be, I think, health and safety would be a lot more stringent these days.
Probably, yes.
A lot more CGI and effects work related, and just safer processes in general. He got banged up on all of these films.
Yes, he did.
They didn't treat him very well, despite being fantastic in the role.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He was still quite new. It was just after George of the Jungle, so he was getting bigger, and obviously he'd had some great success. But he wasn't the same caliber of, like, I think they asked, it was Tom Cruise, Ben Affleck, and Brad Pitt.
And Matt Damon as well. Basically, everybody at that time, those were like the 4 who just got asked for every single thing, it feels like.
But looking back on it, I don't think any of them could have done it in the same way. Like, he does have that comic element that the other 4 don't have. Obviously, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have done some comedy stuff before, and fine. Brad Pitt, again, he's done some funny films, but not in the same off-the-cuff, like, I'm roguish handsome, by the way, I'm going to say something quippy, that sort of way. I think Brendan Fraser is a perfect role for it. And he, for me, after this, he was very typecast in that mindset.
Yeah, he pulls off the silliness that's required.
Yes,
because it's a campy action adventure rom-com silliness. I think the other ones would probably make you take it slightly too seriously and give you a completely different vibe. And we know for a fact that Tom Cruise doesn't work in The Mummy franchise. So, yeah, it is what it is. And I'm glad Brendan Fraser got this role because he smashes it. Quite honestly, I really like the cast in general. Actually, I really like the group of American adventurers who are like the rivals.
Yep.
They end up getting cursed by Imhotep, and juices sucked out of their bodies and eyes and tongues and stuff. But I really like the look of them, and if they didn't all have such gruesome deaths, I would quite have happily have seen them pop up in sequels and
yep.
I don't know, spin-offs maybe, but they all work really well. Like, they're fun, they're rivalish, but they're also like friendly at the same time, and I think they're a good little group.
For me, one of the things I really liked about this is the small details that, like I said, they didn't have to put into the film. So, like Benny's character, you kind of mentioned, he's a coward, he's an opportunist, he'll do everything he needs to make it work. And the first time he meets Imhotep, he's kind of praying for his life, and you see him. It's the epitome of his character, where he's like, I'll try this religious deity. I'll try this one. I'll try this one. Like, hedge your bets, and it just shows how much he has no commitment to anything, even his own religion. And it's a perfect scene, and obviously it like moves the story along. But it's just such a good characterization of him.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy Benny. Like I said earlier, he keeps betraying O'Connell, Brendan Fraser's character. Brendan Fraser, he's going to get revenge on him eventually, but you don't feel like he really is. You feel like he'd forgive him in a heartbeat, really.
Yeah.
He tries to save him at the end when it's all coming down and about to go into the sand and things. So, he was there. He was going to help him. But then, of course, he gets devoured by those scarab beetles. And apparently he gets his comeuppance. I'm not sure. I don't know. Did he really deserve that much comeuppance? Wouldn't you cave to an evil high priest with magic powers who wanted you to do their bidding? I think I might, if I could.
Probably. Yeah.
Speaking of scarab beetles, they do devour people quickly occasionally, don't they? When they're poured over Imhotep to start, it very much looks like they're going to do the big eat, but then apparently they do a very slow eat. So is this a mistake? Yeah. Well, I thought about it, and I don't think it is a mistake, because surely those scarab beetles are going to be absolutely starving. It's been like 3,000 years or something, right? So no wonder they're swarming and absolutely tearing people apart and liquidizing them on the floor.
They mention it in the film. They specifically mention that, the scarab beetles can survive for a long amount of time on very little food. So what they were doing is they slowly ate Imhotep because they were secured in with him. Yeah. They had no other food source, so they had to do it slowly, and that's why it was a torturous thing rather than a quick death.
Didn't look like they were going to do it slowly, though, as when they were poured on.
No, I have to admit, when you first pour him on, he looks like going fast. Maybe they took the top layer off and like, oh, it's a bit dark in here now. Maybe we're packing this guy as a picnic.
Yeah, horrible way to go. Did you enjoy, by the way, how it sure is convenient for Rick O'Connell to know a member of the Royal Air Force who's still stationed locally, wants one big last hurrah and has a death wish, and then will conveniently be swallowed by quicksand upon crashing? Did you enjoy
that? Yes, I do think. Let's forget that sort of like plot mechanic that just drives it along. He just happens to be there. Of course, yeah. It kind of adds to the silliness of the film. Like, this person's never come up before, and then suddenly they need him. Like, oh, by the way, this guy. By the way, people say he looks like my. Sorry, you first.
You say he was going to look like your dad? Is that what people have been telling you?
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Which he doesn't, for one thing. I kind of get it, but like not at all. Anyway,
I don't even think they need to kill him off, to be honest. I know they've given the character the death wish so they can get rid of him essentially as soon as possible. But they could have had him land. I know there's the cyclone and the airplane, and he's making Imhotep look really powerful because he's controlling the sandstorm and shouting at them with his big voice and face and stuff. But at the end, they need to get out, but the plane's gone, and there's just then conveniently a herd of saddled camels that weren't there before because everybody arrives by crashed plane or Imhotep cyclone. So you either fix that in two ways. One, Imhotep cyclone includes saddled camels for some reason, or you just have them fly off. Maybe, I don't know. I just enjoyed it. But yeah, like you said earlier, his plane is cut out of the airline versions because that would be too spooky to have a mummy sandstorm while you're flying over the Atlantic Ocean.
Of course, totally. Like it could happen. It could happen to any of us.
Could happen. It's happening
not Wednesday,
right now
though.
outside.
Tuesday.
Yeah, that's Tuesday stuff. That is.
That's a Tuesday job. Yeah.
My last thing I want to really mention is this is a classic 90s 80s film kind of thing where a classic is tale of old as time, you could say, where an inappropriate and non-consensual kiss would lead to a woman falling madly in love with a man overnight, especially after he gets a lovely haircut. They were simpler times, McBeardy, where you could get away with anything.
But to be fair, that's how I'm with Tegan. Inappropriate kiss, haircut, done. Easy.
I enjoy Rick O'Connell's answers. Like, why did you kiss me? And I was like, I thought I was about to die. It just seemed like something I could do. I'm like, I kind of get your logic there. And she doesn't mind.
I haven't been able to check in the research. I really tried to. I wanted that to be completely sort of ad-libbed because it seems such a Brendan Fraser thing to say. I really wanted to find if that was true, and I couldn't because, let's be honest, the film writers would usually go for something a bit more meaningful or whatever. And I love the fact that it's so off the cuff. Like, look, it realistically, it wasn't planned. It meant nothing.
I was getting hung the next day.
Yeah. It's so good.
Oh, Beardy, I love this film. Have you got anything else you want to add?
No, I do think that in a year where box office hasn't been fantastic and film releases, there's been some great ones, but there have been some terrible ones. If you're going to re-release films, re-release them like this. You know what? This will bring people back. If nothing else, nostalgia. I think they're re-releasing Lord of the Rings in remastered 4K HDR, which I'm very much obviously interested in. Bring back films that people love, and you'll keep cinema alive. It won't cost significantly more, but this is just such a good film that I probably wouldn't watch. If it came on, I would. Like back in 10 years ago, you'd watch TV because it was on, and I stumbled across Film 4 and it was there. Brilliant.
Yeah, you turn it on halfway through and you'd watch the end bit.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't find, like, I had to find this on Sky Store for watching it. For watching it? That's not words. But yeah, it's not something I would just think, you know what, lovely Sunday afternoon, I'm going to go watch this film. But I was so happy that it came out again. It made me want to watch it, and I will now watch the rest. I will forget about some of them conveniently, but I will watch the rest.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't have rewatched this had it not been re-released in cinemas. Even though I know I like the film, it's just it wouldn't have come to the front of the list for me, and I'm really glad it did. And it also makes me excited to come back and like review older films that we from our childhood, teenage years that we really like or really hate for that matter. Yeah, like I mentioned, there's Van Helsing, and there's a whole bunch of other things that actually we can do in the future. So I'm hyped. I genuinely love this film. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, you're gushing a little, you can tell.
I'm very subtle about my opinions on this film. Right. Well, if that's that, Beardy, do you want to take us home?
It is that. I very much enjoyed doing this. I very much enjoyed watching it. Like, even when I watched it at home, I loved it. Watch the film however you can. Please do. It needs more love. And Brendan Fraser's a great man. So, yeah, whatever.
It's true.
Thank you very much for watching and or listening. Please watch if you can. We put a lot of effort into all the visual. Well, I say we. He does everything. I just turn up and talk stupid stuff for a while. But watch it if you can. Listen to it when you can. I will be listening to it on my drive down south tomorrow because I love hearing my own voice.
I love hearing my own voice as well. The perfect
I
podcast
mute you.
duo.
You don't matter.
What?
But other than this, Bobby does do some streaming. Bobby Android on Twitch. You've got something coming up soon.
I've got all sorts of stuff coming up soon. I'm playing Crusader Kings 3. We've got a barbecue stream coming up with you at the end of the month. That's going to be fun. We're going to do all sorts of smoking and barbecuing and things. I'm building more Lego. It's going to be great. We might do a cooking stream inside at some point soon as well. It's going to be fantastic. There's all this stuff occurring. Multiplayer games, solo games. It's fantastic over there when I do it, which is occasionally.
So make sure you go across and follow. Subscribe as well. Why not? Help the channel so we can do more stuff. Buy more cameras. Why not? He'll have multiple angles for this podcast. But yeah, do that. You'll see more of me, and you'll see some fantastic gameplay and other great people up.
It's true.
I'm still not doing anything fancy, so don't find me. Please do not try. Just find me here or maybe on his streams. But thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye from me.
Thank you so much. Farewell.